The sun hung low over the endless expanse of golden sand, its heat pressing down like an invisible hand. The battlefield stretched as far as the eye could see, littered with remnants of war, shattered ships, scorched dunes, and the eerie silence that followed chaos. In the heart of this desolation stood two figures under a makeshift tent, their shadows long against the ground. One was human, clad in armor marked by scratches and scorch marks from countless battles. His name was Captain Orion Hale, known for his sharp wit and even sharper tongue. The other figure towered above him, her form both majestic and terrifying, a being of shimmering scales and radiant eyes, crowned with spines that caught the light like prisms. She was Queen Lysira of the Zenthari, leader of the alien forces humanity had been fighting for years. Orion leaned casually on one leg, his helmet tucked under his arm, revealing a face lined with exhaustion but still carrying a mischievous glint in his hazel eyes. He wasn't here to fight today, he was here to talk, or at least try. Across from him, Queen Lysira shifted slightly, her tail curling around her feet in what might have been nervousness if it weren't for the regal tilt of her head. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the weight of authority tempered with curiosity. "I assume you didn't call this meeting just to admire my fleet," Lysira said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Her words were translated through a small device clipped to her chest, though her inflection needed no help conveying her disdain. "On the contrary," Orion replied smoothly, leaning forward ever so slightly. "Admiring your fleet is exactly why I'm here. It's quite impressive." His grin widened as he added, "Though not nearly as impressive as you." For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of wind whipping across the dunes. Then, to Orion's surprise, and perhaps delight, Lysira's iridescent cheeks darkened ever so slightly, a subtle flush creeping into her otherwise stoic expression. She blinked once, slowly, before narrowing her glowing eyes at him. "You humans are strange creatures," she murmured, crossing her arms over her armored torso. "Is flattery how you always start negotiations?" "No," Orion admitted, straightening up now. "But then again, most negotiations don't involve someone as beautiful and deadly as you." He paused, letting the words hang in the air between them. "Your beauty already killed us, Your Majesty. We don't need a war. If silence could be measured, this one would have shattered glass." Lysira stared at him, her mouth opening and closing as though struggling to find the right response. Finally, she let out a soft laugh, the sound musical yet tinged with disbelief. "You really change my mood, Captain Hale," she said after a moment, her posture relaxing ever so slightly. "Perhaps there won't be any more wars with you." Negotiations began awkwardly, punctuated by moments of tension and unexpected humor. They sat across from each other at a rickety table brought in by Orion's team, surrounded by guards who eyed each other warily. Every so often, Lysira's attendants would whisper something into her ear, causing her to roll her eyes dramatically, an action Orion found strangely endearing. Meanwhile, Orion's second-in-command, Lieutenant Maravas, kept shooting him pointed looks whenever he leaned too close or cracked another joke. "So tell me, Captain," Lysira began, resting her chin on one clawed hand. "Why should I trust humans? You've spent centuries trying to conquer planets, exploit resources, and destroy anything that stands in your way." "Well, technically, we haven't destroyed everything," Orion countered with a smirk. "We left some pretty nice craters behind. Landscaping services, free of charge." Lysira snorted, covering her mouth briefly with her hand. "You're impossible." "That's what they all say," Orion replied, winking. "But seriously, Your Majesty, we're tired. Tired of fighting, tired of losing good people, tired of burning resources on pointless conflicts. Maybe it's time we tried something different." Mara cleared her throat loudly, drawing Orion's attention. "Sir, maybe we should focus on the terms?" Right, Orion muttered, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. Turning back to Lysira, he continued, "Look, we can offer technology, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, whatever you want. Just give peace a chance." Lysira tilted her head thoughtfully, her gaze piercing. "And what do you expect in return?" "Nothing unreasonable," Orion assured her. "Access to safe passage through your territory, mutual defense pacts, and—" he hesitated, his voice dropping slightly. A chance to know each other better. Without the weapons. This time, Lysira didn't blush. She laughed outright, the sound echoing across the barren landscape. Even her guards seemed taken aback, lowering their weapons momentarily to exchange bewildered glances. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish," Lysira said once she'd regained her composure. "Either way, you intrigue me." As the hours passed, the conversation shifted from formalities to personal anecdotes. Orion shared stories of growing up on Earth's overcrowded cities, while Lysira spoke of her homeworld, a planet covered in crystalline forests that sang when the winds blew through them. They discovered a shared love for strategy games, swapping tips and tricks until their respective teams grew visibly impatient. At one point, Orion gestured animatedly as he recounted a particularly ridiculous mission gone wrong. "So there I was, dangling upside down from a tree branch, holding onto a live grenade with one hand and trying to untangle myself with the other. My squad thought I'd lost my mind, but hey, we got the job done." Lysira doubled over laughing, clutching her sides. "I can't decide whether to commend your bravery or question your sanity." "Both," Orion suggested, grinning. Their banter lightened the mood considerably, though tensions occasionally flared. At one heated moment, Lysira slammed her fist on the table, sending a ripple through the water glasses. "Do you think this is easy for me? Trusting someone who has slaughtered my kind without mercy?" Orion sobered instantly, leaning forward earnestly. "I won't deny our mistakes, Your Majesty. But I'm asking you to judge us not by our past actions, but by our willingness to change. To make things right." Her glare softened, and she sighed deeply. "You're persistent, I'll give you that." By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, both sides had made significant progress. Drafts of treaties were exchanged, compromises reached, and tentative plans laid out. Yet beneath the surface, something else simmered, a connection neither had anticipated nor fully understood. As the meeting drew to a close, Lysira rose gracefully, her towering frame casting a long shadow over Orion. "Captain Hale," she said softly, extending a scaled hand. "Thank you for today. For giving me hope." Orion took her hand, marveling at the warmth radiating from her touch despite her intimidating appearance. "The pleasure is mine, Your Majesty. And please, call me Orion." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Very well, Orion." With that, she turned and strode away, her entourage falling into step behind her. As they disappeared into the twilight, Orion couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, not just of peace talks, but of something far greater. "What are you smiling about, sir?" Mara asked dryly, folding her arms. Orion glanced at her, still grinning. "Oh, nothing. Just thinking about how much I hate paperwork." Mara rolled her eyes, muttering something about hopeless commanders, but Orion barely heard her. His mind was already racing ahead, imagining the possibilities of a future where humans and Zenthari stood side by side instead of facing off in battle. Little did he know, however, that the road to peace would prove far more treacherous than anyone anticipated. Back aboard the human flagship, Orion stared out the viewport at the stars twinkling in the vast darkness. Sleep eluded him, his thoughts consumed by the enigmatic queen and the fragile truce they'd forged. Elsewhere, hidden among the dunes, shadowy figures moved silently, their intentions unknown. Somewhere deep within the Zenthari ranks, whispers of dissent brewed, questioning Lysira's decision to negotiate with humanity. Neither side realized yet that the true test of their resolve, and their budding alliance, was only just beginning. The next morning, the desert stretched out like a canvas of gold, untouched by the chaos that had defined it for years. Yet beneath the surface calm, tremors of unrest began to ripple through both sides. On board the human flagship Eclipse, Captain Orion Hale sat in his quarters, poring over the draft treaty with Lieutenant Mara Voss. The document was dense, filled with clauses about resource sharing, territorial boundaries, and cultural exchange programs. But what weighed on Orion's mind wasn't the logistics, it was Lysira. "She's playing us," Mara said suddenly, breaking the silence. She leaned forward, her sharp green eyes locking onto Orion's. "You think she's just going to roll over because you charmed her? These aliens don't trust us any more than we trust them." Orion didn't look up from the papers. I'm not naive, Mara. I know this isn't going to be easy. But if we don't try. Try. Mara interrupted, slamming her fist on the table. Sir, forgive me, but your little flirtation aside, we're dealing with a species that sees war as an art form. They've been fighting since before humanity even discovered fire. Do you really believe they'll stop now? Her words lingered in the air, heavy and biting. Orion finally raised his head, meeting her gaze with quiet determination. No, I don't expect them to stop overnight. What I do expect is that we give peace a chance instead of jumping straight into another bloodbath. If Lysira wants to meet us halfway, then so will I. Mara sighed, rubbing her temples. Fine. But remember, diplomacy only works when both sides are sincere. And forgive me, sir, but sincerity isn't exactly their strong suit. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of the Zenthari command ship, Queen Lysira paced along the crystalline floors of her throne room. Her advisors surrounded her, whispering urgently in their melodic language. Their expressions were grim, their body language tense. Your Majesty, one advisor, Elder Zorath, began cautiously. The council grows uneasy. Many fear you've grown too soft in your dealings with the humans. They see your affection for their leader as weakness. Lysira stopped mid-step, her glowing eyes narrowing dangerously. Affection? She echoed, her voice low and dangerous. Do not mistake civility for weakness, Zorath. This alliance could secure our survival, a future free from endless conflict. But at what cost? Another advisor chimed in, stepping forward. Their kind has betrayed others before. Why should we believe they won't do the same to us? Lysira turned away, her tail flicking irritably. She stared out the massive viewport, where the stars shimmered like scattered diamonds. For all her confidence during the negotiations, doubts gnawed at her resolve. Was she being reckless? Or was she simply tired? Tired of leading a people who thrived on destruction, tired of watching her soldiers die for wars that never truly ended? Before she could respond, a young soldier burst into the chamber, breathless and wide-eyed. Your Majesty! Reports indicate unusual activity near the southern dunes. Human scouts have been spotted moving outside the agreed-upon perimeter. Lysira's spine stiffened. Show me. The soldier activated a holographic display, revealing grainy footage of armored figures darting between rocky outcrops. Though the image was unclear, there was no mistaking the insignia emblazoned on their shoulder plates, Earth's coalition forces. Zorath stepped closer, his tone venomous. It seems your faith in these humans may already be misplaced, Your Majesty. Lysira clenched her fists, her claws digging into her palms. Betrayal burned hot in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. Send a squadron to investigate. No weapons unless provoked. Let us see what game they're playing. Back on the Eclipse, Orion received the news with mounting dread. A distress signal had come through from one of their reconnaissance teams operating near the southern dunes. According to the transmission, they'd encountered hostile forces, but not Zenthari. Instead, they described strange mechanical drones armed with advanced weaponry, unlike anything either side had seen before. What the hell is this? Mara demanded, pacing the bridge as technicians worked frantically to decode the signal. If it's not the Zenthari, then who, or what, is attacking our men? Orion frowned, leaning over the console. Could it be remnants of the Krylos? They've been hiding out in the sector ever since the last purge. No, interjected Chief Engineer Tarek, shaking his head. These readings are off the charts. Whatever we're dealing with, it's far more advanced than anything the Krylos had. As the team debated possible explanations, a sudden alarm blared throughout the ship. The view screen flickered to life, showing a swarm of sleek, metallic drones descending upon the Eclipse. Without warning, the drones opened fire, their energy beams slicing through the hull with terrifying precision. Shields up! Orion barked, gripping the edge of the command chair. All hands, battle stations. Chaos erupted across the vessel as crew members scrambled to respond. Explosions rocked the ship, sending debris flying and alarms screaming. Through the chaos, Orion's thoughts raced. Who, or what, was behind this attack? And why now, just as they were beginning to negotiate peace? Amidst the firefight, a message crackled through the comms system. It was garbled at first, but gradually, a chilling voice emerged. "This is Commander Dax of the Synthari Collective. Surrender now, or face annihilation." "The Synthari?" Mara exclaimed, pale-faced. "I thought they were wiped out centuries ago." "So did everyone else," Orion muttered grimly. He grabbed the comm unit, addressing the entire ship. "This is Captain Hale. Hold your positions. We're not giving up without a fight." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his mind. The Synthari were infamous for their ruthlessness, their ability to adapt and overwhelm. If they were truly back, then humanity, and the Zenthari, were facing an enemy far greater than themselves. On the Zenthari command ship, Lysira watched the unfolding skirmish with growing unease. Her squadron had returned with reports of similar attacks near their borders. When the Synthari broadcast reached her fleet, her blood ran cold. "Summon Captain Hale," she ordered sharply. "Now." Within minutes, Orion's battered transport shuttle docked with the Zenthari vessel. Bruised and exhausted but still standing tall, he strode into Lysira's chamber, flanked by Mara and 2 armed guards. The Queen wasted no time on pleasantries. "You lied to me," she accused, her voice trembling with fury. "Your people attacked mine. Do you deny it?" Orion held up his hands defensively. "We didn't attack anyone. We're being targeted by some kind of rogue faction, the Synthari. You've heard of them." Recognition flashed in Lysira's eyes, followed by something akin to fear. "They were supposed to be extinct. How is this possible?" "That's what we're trying to figure out," Orion replied earnestly. "But one thing's clear, they're after both of us. We need to work together if we want to survive." Lysira hesitated, torn between suspicion and necessity. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. But mark my words, Captain. If this turns out to be a trick—" "It's not," Orion assured her firmly. "Trust me." For a moment, their gazes locked, and despite everything, the betrayal, the danger, the uncertainty, they found solace in each other's presence. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Unbeknownst to either of them, however, the Synthari had already infiltrated both fleets. Hidden among the ranks were spies, saboteurs programmed to sow discord and ensure neither side could unite against their true enemy. As the hours ticked by, cracks began to form in the fragile alliance, threatening to tear it apart before it even had a chance to take root. And somewhere in the depths of space, Commander Dax smiled cruelly, watching the chaos unfold. The tension aboard the Zenthari command ship was palpable as Queen Lysira and Captain Orion Hale stood side by side, staring at the holographic display that flickered between images of the Synthari drones and maps of their movements. The room buzzed with activity. Zenthari strategists barked orders in their melodic tongue, while human technicians scrambled to integrate Earth systems with the alien technology. "We need to coordinate our defenses," Orion said firmly, breaking the silence. "If we split our forces, they'll pick us off one by one." Lysira crossed her arms, her scales shimmering faintly under the dim light. "Agreed. But how can we trust your people not to turn on mine when this is over?" Orion sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I can't promise you anything beyond today, Your Majesty. All I know is that if we don't stand together now, there won't be a tomorrow for either of us." Her glowing eyes narrowed, searching his face for any sign of deceit. When she found none, she nodded curtly. "Very well. My fleet will join yours in a combined assault against the Synthari. But make no mistake, if I sense betrayal, I will end you myself." "Fair enough," Orion replied with a wry smile. "Though I'd prefer it if you didn't." As plans were laid out and strategies discussed, neither leader noticed the subtle shifts happening around them. Among the humans, whispers spread about the Zenthari's motives. Among the Zenthari, doubts festered about humanity's sincerity. And lurking in the shadows, unseen by all, the Synthari spies worked tirelessly to fan those flames of distrust. Hours later, the joint fleet launched its counterattack. Dozens of ships, human cruisers and Zenthari warships alike, formed an intricate web of firepower as they closed in on the Synthari stronghold hidden within an asteroid belt. The enemy drones swarmed like insects, their metallic bodies glinting ominously in the starlight. "Fire!" Orion shouted from the bridge of the Eclipse, watching as plasma cannons roared to life. Streams of energy lit up the void, tearing through the first wave of drones. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Voss coordinated targeting patterns, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. On the Zenthari flagship, Lysira commanded her warriors with equal precision. Her tail lashed behind her as she barked orders, her every movement exuding authority. "Focus fire on their central hub. We must disable their command structure." For a brief moment, it seemed like victory might be within reach. The combined strength of both fleets overwhelmed the Synthari forces, pushing them back toward the heart of their base. But just as hope began to rise, disaster struck. A massive explosion rocked the battlefield, sending shockwaves rippling through space. One of the human cruisers, the Vanguard, had been hit by a devastating blast, its hull breached and engines crippled. Panic erupted across the comms channels as survivors screamed for help. "What happened?" Orion demanded, his voice tight with fury. "Who fired on the Vanguard?" Before anyone could answer, another transmission crackled through the speakers. This time, it wasn't the cold, mechanical voice of Commander Dax, it was human. "Captain Hale, this is Commander Rourke of the Vanguard. It wasn't the Synthari who hit us, it was a Zenthari ship." Orion froze, his blood turning to ice. He turned to Lysira, whose expression mirrored his own horror. "Your Majesty, did you order this?" "No," she snapped, her voice rising. "I would never sanction such an attack." But the damage had already been done. Across the battlefield, confusion gave way to anger. Human pilots accused the Zenthari of treachery, while Zenthari commanders questioned why the humans hadn't provided adequate cover for their flanks. Accusations flew like shrapnel, cutting deeper than any weapon. Amidst the growing chaos, Orion tried desperately to maintain control. "Everyone, hold your positions. This has to be a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding," Mara interjected sharply, pointing to a data feed on her console. "Look at this. Their weapons signatures match perfectly. A Zenthari ship fired on the Vanguard. There's no denying it." Lysira stepped closer, her claws flexing involuntarily. "Then explain this." She tapped a sequence into her device, bringing up a different set of readings. "One of your cruisers targeted my supply vessel moments before the Vanguard was hit. Are you saying that was also a coincidence?" Orion stared at the evidence, his mind racing. Something wasn't adding up. The timing of the attacks, the conflicting reports, it was almost as if someone wanted them to turn on each other. "Sabotage," he muttered under his breath. Turning to Lysira, he said urgently, "This isn't us attacking you, or you attacking us. It's the Synthari. They're using decoys, manipulating our systems to make it look like we're firing on each other." Lysira hesitated, her gaze darting between the data and Orion's determined face. Finally, she nodded. "If you're lying to me—" "I'm not," Orion interrupted, his tone fierce. "We're being played. If we don't figure out how to stop it, we'll destroy each other before the Synthari even have to lift a finger." Back on the battlefield, the situation grew increasingly dire. Ships on both sides continued to exchange fire, convinced they were retaliating against betrayal. The Synthari drones capitalized on the chaos, slipping through gaps in the defensive lines and wreaking havoc. In the midst of the carnage, a lone escape pod jettisoned from the wreckage of the Vanguard. Inside, Commander Rourke clung to consciousness, his body battered but alive. As the pod drifted aimlessly, he managed to activate a manual distress signal, one that bypassed the corrupted communication networks. "This is Rourke," he rasped into the mic, to anyone still listening. "The Synthari are controlling our ships. They've hacked our systems. Don't trust what you see on your screens. Verify targets visually. Repeat, verify targets visually." The message reached Orion's flagship, where Tarek immediately relayed it to the bridge. "Sir, I think we've got something here. If Rourke's right, then everything we've seen so far has been manipulated." Orion clenched his fists, adrenaline surging through him. Grabbing the comm unit, he broadcasted to the entire fleet. All units, listen up. The Synthari are feeding us false data. From this point forward, engage only visual targets. Confirm friendlies before firing. Spread the word. Lysira echoed the order to her fleet, her voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to shift. Pilots adjusted their tactics, relying on instinct and observation rather than faulty readouts. The frequency of friendly fire incidents dropped, allowing both sides to refocus their efforts on the true enemy. But the Synthari weren't done yet. From the depths of the asteroid field emerged a colossal vessel, a monstrosity of jagged metal and pulsating energy cores. Its arrival sent tremors through the battlefield, dwarfing even the largest Zenthari dreadnoughts. "Commander Dax," a chilling voice boomed across the comms, loud enough to drown out the sounds of combat. "You've proven tenacious, but futile. Surrender now, or witness the extinction of your species." Orion exchanged a grim look with Lysira. Whatever happened next, they knew they couldn't face this behemoth alone. "Here's the plan," Orion said, his voice steady despite the odds. "We hit them with everything we've got, simultaneously. No holding back. If we can breach their shields, maybe we can take out their core." "And if we fail?" Lysira asked quietly. Orion met her gaze, his hazel eyes unwavering. "Then at least we go down fighting, for something worth believing in." With that, the two leaders rallied their fleets, channeling every ounce of courage and determination into one final, desperate charge. As the Allied ships surged forward, their weapons blazing, the Synthari fortress loomed larger and more menacing than ever. Unbeknownst to everyone, however, deep within the belly of the Synthari flagship, a single infiltrator moved silently through the corridors. Clad in black armor and armed with nothing but a stolen data spike, the figure navigated the labyrinthine passages with practiced ease. Their mission was clear: sabotage the enemy from within. As the climactic battle unfolded outside, the infiltrator reached the central chamber housing the Synthari's primary AI core. With a swift motion, they inserted the spike into the terminal, initiating a virus designed to cripple the system. Alarms blared instantly, red lights flashing as automated defenses sprang to life. "Who dares defy the Synthari?" a robotic voice thundered, echoing through the chamber. The infiltrator smirked beneath their helmet, speaking softly into their comm unit. "It's me, Commander. Thought you could use a little help." Back on the Eclipse, Orion grinned despite the chaos. "About damn time, Rourke. Good work." As the virus spread, the Synthari fortress began to falter, its once impenetrable shields flickering and failing. Seizing the opportunity, the Allied fleet unleashed a barrage of concentrated fire, targeting the exposed core. Explosions rippled across the surface of the fortress, lighting up the darkness like a dying star. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though victory might finally be within grasp. But Commander Dax was not so easily defeated. From the wreckage of his crumbling empire, he issued one last, chilling decree: "If I fall, I take you all with me." And with that, the countdown to annihilation began. The countdown echoed through the comms, a relentless reminder of impending doom. Commander Dax's voice was cold and mechanical, devoid of emotion, as if he were merely reciting facts rather than issuing a death sentence. 10 minutes until core detonation. Evacuate or perish. Orion clenched his fists on the bridge of the Eclipse, his mind racing. The Synthari fortress was crumbling, its systems failing under the combined assault, but it wasn't enough. If the core went critical, the resulting explosion would obliterate everything within light years: humans, Zenthari, and any hope for peace. "We can't let this happen," Lysira said urgently beside him, her scales shimmering with urgency. "There has to be a way to stop it." "There is," Orion replied grimly, turning to face her. "But it's going to take someone inside that thing to shut it down manually. And whoever goes, they're not coming back." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. Their eyes locked, unspoken words passing between them in an instant. Both knew what needed to be done, and both wanted desperately to volunteer. "No," Lysira said firmly, stepping forward. "I'm the Queen. It's my duty to protect my people. And I'm the captain, Orion countered, matching her step for step. My crew looks to me to lead. Besides, he hesitated, his voice softening. Besides, I started this mess. Let me finish it. Lysira's jaw tightened, but before she could argue further, Lieutenant Maravos stepped in, her tone sharp yet pleading. Sir, there's no time for heroics. We need another plan. Orion shook his head, already moving toward the door. There isn't one. Trust me, Mara. You've got the fleet. Keep them safe. Before anyone could stop him, Orion sprinted down the corridor, heading for the nearest shuttle bay. Behind him, Lysira hesitated only briefly before following, her tail lashing furiously. By the time she caught up to him at the launch bay, he was already climbing into a small reconnaissance craft. Orion, she called out, her voice breaking slightly. You can't do this alone. He paused, looking at her over his shoulder. His expression softened, though his resolve remained steel-hard. Then come with me. But know this, if we don't make it, your people will need you more than ever. Her glowing eyes searched his face, and after a heartbeat, she nodded. Together, they climbed aboard the shuttle, strapping themselves in as the engines roared to life. The craft shot out of the hangar, hurtling toward the collapsing Synthari fortress. Inside the fortress, chaos reigned. Alarms blared, sparks flew from ruptured conduits, and automated defenses fired indiscriminately. The two unlikely heroes navigated the treacherous corridors with precision, their movements synchronized despite their differences. Orion hacked terminals while Lysira provided cover, her claws slicing through rogue drones like paper. This way, Orion shouted, pointing to a sealed bulkhead marked with glowing glyphs. That's the core chamber. They reached the door just as it slid open, revealing a massive chamber dominated by a pulsating sphere of energy, the AI core. The countdown continued its merciless march, 5 minutes remaining. You ready? Orion asked, glancing at Lysira. She smirked, her fangs glinting in the dim light. Always. Together, they leapt into action. Orion worked frantically at the control panel, bypassing security measures and inputting override codes. Meanwhile, Lysira fought off waves of drones, her every strike precise and deadly. Sweat dripped from Orion's brow as his fingers flew across the console, each second feeling like an eternity. 2 minutes. Lysira warned, dispatching another drone with a swift kick. I'm almost there. Orion replied, his voice strained. With a final keystroke, the core began to power down, its glow dimming steadily. But the victory was short-lived. A deafening screech filled the air as the walls around them shuddered violently. The structure's destabilizing. Lysira yelled, grabbing Orion's arm. We have to go. But as they turned to leave, a massive chunk of debris fell from above, blocking their exit. They were trapped. Back on the Eclipse, Mara watched in horror as the fortress imploded on the view screen. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, No. But then, against all odds, a tiny escape pod ejected from the wreckage moments before the core detonated in a blinding flash of light. Cheers erupted across the fleet as the survivors realized what had happened. Minutes later, the pod docked with the Eclipse. When the hatch opened, Orion stumbled out, supporting a battered but triumphant Lysira. The crew erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the ship. Even the Zenthari warriors who had gathered nearby lowered their weapons in respect. You crazy fool, Mara said, throwing her arms around Orion. Don't ever scare us like that again. Orion grinned weakly, leaning heavily on Lysira. Wouldn't dream of it. Months passed, and the galaxy slowly began to heal. Under the leadership of Orion and Lysira, humanity and the Zenthari forged a true alliance, working together to rebuild what had been lost. Trade routes reopened, cultural exchanges flourished, and trust, once fragile, grew stronger with each passing day. On a quiet evening beneath the crystalline forests of Lysira's homeworld, Orion stood nervously before a gathering of dignitaries from both species. Clad in ceremonial attire, he waited as Lysira approached, her radiant form making his heart race. Do you take this human to be your bonded mate? The officiant asked, addressing Lysira first. "I do," she replied, her voice steady and proud. "And do you, Captain Orion Hale, accept Queen Lysira as your partner for life?" Orion smiled, taking her hand in his. "I absolutely do." As the ceremony concluded, the crowd erupted into cheers, celebrating not just the union of two individuals, but the union of two peoples. That night, under the stars, Orion and Lysira danced together, their laughter mingling with the music of the forest. In the years that followed, their bond became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, love and understanding could triumph over hatred and fear. Together, they built a future where war was no longer inevitable, where beauty truly did conquer all. And so, amidst the songs of the crystalline trees and the glow of distant stars, Orion and Lysira lived happily ever after, not as enemies, but as partners, leaders, and lovers.